All right. I'll take this look at this really quick. Abin Preach. Let's see. Kanye, Kyrie, Jews, why folks don't care about anti-Semitism. Okay, let's see what we got here.
Topic: Kanye, Kyrie, and the Jews. Hey, listen, we walking on a thin ice. You feel me? This is how every fucking black artist has been talking about this issue. To be like, hey, you know, we don't support or condone that kind of time, but these are my, So why don't we cut through the bullshit and let's talk about it?
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you first. How do you? You're aware Kanye West, Kyrie Irving have been reprimanded either by.
Okay. So here's the thing. I looked into the Kyrie Irving thing a little bit. The issue is that he signal boosted a particular movie that had Holocaust denial rhetoric inside of that movie, and he didn't explicitly say not to listen to that part. And Kanye West said DEFCON 3 to Jewish people or 5 to Jewish people. Those are the problems, is that they're either denying the Holocaust existence or trying to promote the stereotype that Jewish people are controlling the world in some capacity. And this is rhetoric that's led to the Holocaust. I don't know why this isn't exactly like a really nuanced thing here. This is pretty big, like, anti-Semitism that's led. It's a rhetoric that's led to the Holocaust. So this is why it's bad. It's pretty explicit.
Big companies like Adidas that have cut their ties with Kanye, or the Brooklyn Nets who suspended Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, and told him he had a bunch of demands, including sensitivity training before he could come back to work, over the fact that he endorsed or kind of highlighted a documentary or a movie of sorts that was on Amazon. He was trying to tell people to go watch it, and that documentary was a little bit spicy, alluded to some anti-Semitic stuff,
like Holocaust denial,
some mustache man thing. It was kind of crazy, allegedly.
So you're gonna go after Kyrie for?
What do you mean allegedly?
Having, like, just retweeting the link to that documentary, but you're not gonna go after Jeff Bezos for having that on his platform? Was it the money? What's going on? Huh?
I'm trying to just come to terms with. I think that it's okay to have different perspectives up, even on Amazon. I guess that's a point to make. Okay.
Hold on. I asked him a question. Huh? You're not going to go after...
I mean, they're two separate institutions. I don't think Amazon's the one suspending this guy. Amazon's saying, hey, we want to put this stuff up, and this guy's signal boosting it. And people... It's two different organizations, I guess. Amazon and whatever fucking basketball bullshit. So they'd have two different standards. Okay, I guess.
Actual platform that this thing is on, that you're against? You're going to go after the player? Huh?
I mean, you're not really doing anything with I mean, it's an interesting question, but again, it's two different entities controlling two different things.
Speak up, I didn't hear. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
The 6 things that you have to do to go back to, I think that's a bit much. That's me.
Let's see. Okay. What exactly are the 6 things that he has to do? Issue an apology for posting a link to a movie on October 20th. Condemn the harmful and false content and make clear that does not have anti-Jewish beliefs. Complete the hate causes that Irving, the Nets, and Anti-Defamation League agreed upon their joint releases, including a $500,000 donation towards an organization, eradicate the intolerance in communities, complete sensitivity training created by the Nets, complete anti-Semitic hate training designed by the Nets, meet with representatives from the Anti-Defamation League as well as Jewish community. Okay, after completing 1 to 5, meet with the owner, Joe, whatever, Cy, and lead franchise officials and demonstrate the lessons learned. Okay, the only one that I think is a little much is that he has to donate $500,000. Everything outside that I don't really see an issue
That's a bit
with.
much. The second thing, if I talk about Kanye... Whatever, Kanye, whether you like Kanye or not, who you think is a coon or whatever, I'm going to say this. Adidas, you severed your ties with Kanye, but you're still going to sell the Yeezys.
Okay, maybe they have a contract.
I am not having none of it. None. It's all about the...
I'm guessing their argument is that the company doesn't really give a shit. That's probably true. Absolutely. Okay. They probably don't care at all about the anti-Semitism. They're more about money, but there are a lot of people who care about the anti-Semitism. So
the money.
So you saying you got money, but you're not buying?
I got the money. It's right there. Not buying. The inconsistency is a sickness. You haven't said it, but it's crazy. Yeah. When they said that, oh yeah, no, we're still gonna. Yeah, we do not agree with, but we're still gonna sell the price. God damn.
From my perspective, seeing the media and these organizations reprimand Kyrie or Kanye, I suspect that this didn't lower anti-Semitism in any type of way. If anything, it just fomented it and increased it in a lot of cases.
I just don't. It's just simply you couldn't even begin to make an argument for that you think that them dropping support for those players increase anti-Semitism. Like, that's just simply not true. I don't know if it decreased it, but it didn't increase it. It's a strong word from these companies, whether they care or not, that they're not going to tolerate anti-Semitic rhetoric that's led to the death of Jewish people. It's not that deep. I feel like this is just a forced contrarian perspective. Like, okay, how do you think it exacerbated anti-Semitism? Okay.
You have to get at the root of it.
Okay, what's the root?
A lot of people kind of parody this trope that Jewish people are part of some kind of grand conspiracy, or that they have all the power. And then the moment this kind of stuff is brought up, everyone says anti-Semitic, and they try to lobby some kind of criticism or try to get these people to pay for the things that they've said.
Okay. I don't know what they're talking about with Dave Chappelle. I'll have to look into that.
Dave Chappelle recently, in his monologue, people have come at him for saying he's normalizing anti-Semitic. I remember one point during this whole thing, Dave talks about the fact that he worked in Hollywood for a long time. And he's like, there's a lot of Jews in Hollywood.
Okay.
And people are like, oh my God, here's the thing. You getting on your account and yelling like, oh, anti-Semitic. Guess what? If you've ever worked in Hollywood, there's a lot of Jews, whether you like it or not. And if our response to that statement is inherently just, get this person, get rid of this person. You know
okay, but you can't compound Kyle Irving, Kanye West, and Dave Chappelle. I didn't watch the monologue. Let's just assume that he just acknowledged that there are a lot of Jewish people in there. That's fine. But again, Kanye West, DEFCON 3 to all Jews or whatever. He making this assertion that like all Jews are like what's held him and his career back and other black content creators back. I watched the Lex Friedman conversation. He's not pinning it on some bad people a part of a community. He's pinning it onto all Jews. The Kyrie Irving thing, if you want to say that like it was just signal boosting a particular documentary and you think that like it was too harsh for punishment, that's fine. But like the Dave Chappelle thing, from where you're saying it, which I don't even know if it's true, just sounds like an acknowledgement, but it's something that you should be careful about, because I don't know if he did in his monologue, did he say that there are like, why did he say there were a lot of Jews? I have to watch it. Did he say that there were a lot of Jews to try to promote like the conspiracy, or was he making a nuanced point? If he's like, there's a lot of Jews, then that's just going to cause like anti-Jewish hate. If you bring, like, if I was like, a lot of black people commit crimes, what do you think I'm saying there? Probably using that as like a vehicle to be racist towards black people without bringing up like specific context of why I would say that. Again, I didn't watch the segment, so I'm not going to say that he was or wasn't being anti-Semitic. But all I'm saying is it's not as simple as just being like, he was acknowledging a fact. We can acknowledge a lot of facts, but like based on why we acknowledge them, they could become off as incredibly bigoted. Again, based on the context, like I said, if I was just like, hey, you know, black people are 1352, you know, I just push the meme out there, and you're like, well, what do you mean by that? It's like it's a fact, without acknowledging any of like the other statistical aspects or the other like systemic aspects of this. But okay,
what the average person is looking at that thing and thinking, did they say a lie? Because if they didn't, why are you trying to cancel them or trying to get them reprimanded? So instead of always turning to immediately just being like, oh, anti-Semitic, why don't you do the smart thing, which is just demystify the reasons why Jewish folks may be overrepresented in positions of leadership in Hollywood, or demystify.
All right, so what's your argument to that?
The reason why Biden's cabinet is like 50% Jewish. Like, even though these are such a small population, only time we see them represented in media is when they're at the upper echelons of society. That's generally how we internalize Jewish people. The thing I'm trying to get at is, as a black person, the only time we ever heard about Jewish people was either like when they were running some company or when they were referenced in rap songs or hip hop music videos. If you're walking through the street and you meet a Jewish person, you might not even know they're Jewish because they just represent as white presenting. The only time you really internalize someone's Jewish is when you hear about them achieving things. Right? It's not like,
for the most part, the only people who acknowledge like specific like Judaism specifically are people. Listen, I know this is like a little bit out there, but most of the time people don't really distinguish Jewish people from white people. It's mostly like far right wingers like Nick Fuentes who say that like Jewish people aren't white, that represent Jewish people. I don't know why Jewish people are overrepresented. Do you think it's because of a secret Jewish cabal? Do you think that it has to do with systemic racism? Do you think that maybe there's a cultural aspect where they're like really community strong, like Asian communities? I mean, and they just happen to be white as well. We don't really know. But again, you got to be careful when you talk about these topics.
Asians. I see Asians at my corner store. I see them in the streets. They're visible. They're on the buses with me. I don't know when I'm next to a Jewish person. So my only media interpretation of Jewish people is in positions of power or in rap songs being spoken about very poorly. Get me? And as someone who's digested hip hop. All I ever heard since the 90s is like, these niggas are stealing our money, these niggas are doing that, the Jewish people control us, right? That is all I ever heard. And then I looked and I got Biden's cabinet, that's 50% Jewish. That's all you're seeing from a media perspective. So that's where folks have to come in and demystify the reason why. Because right now, I don't know why. Because if you don't, we're still going to see what it is. We just won't know why it's there. You get what I'm trying to say? And to just draw a quick parallel, black people are overrepresented when it comes to crime in North America.
Sure.
If someone says, yo, black people commit a lot of crime, and you're
That's racist.
You got to do the extra step and be like, the reason why they're so overrepresented is due to cultural, socioeconomic issues, poverty. Then you demystify.
This is a fair point. All right, because I was getting annoyed with the video up until that point where he's like, I don't know why, but I noticed this thing. Now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, so here's the argument that I'm getting from Edmund Preach, and I can respect the argument. It seems like there's a lot of Jewish people overrepresented in positions of power, and we don't know why. And instead of having the conversation as to why this is happening, every time you bring it up, they just claim anti-Semitism and won't let you push forward. Based on, I think, what Kyrie Irving said or promoted and Kanye West, it's reasonable to say that they are weaponizing the potential acknowledgement of Jewish overrepresentation in positions of power to be anti-Semitic, whereas we need to ask, why is that? And I don't really know either. That's a good question. I don't think it's because of a secret Jewish cabal. I think it might have something to do with the fact that they're white in America, first and foremost. Jewish communities are very strong communities as well, just like Asian communities. They can have a lot of influence, I guess, from a cultural perspective. Maybe nepotism is an angle there as well. I don't know. I don't really know, but I don't think it has anything to do with some kind of secret magical Jewish cabal. There's probably nepotism mixed with like luck, mixed with like white, the fact that they're white. I don't really know. I'm going to look into it while I watch this video. Apparently Jon Stewart defended their perspective. Okay.
Right, so you understand, okay, once you remove a lot of these factors, actually the crime rate drops significantly until the point where it's like not that different from... Here's something that is true. Okay, and I'll actually link to somebody who really studied Jewish history and was a scholar of such. And they talk about the fact that during the 50s and the 60s, the people who were either co-owners or owners of a lot of the record labels, okay, were Jewish people. And these were people who were signing these people to exploitative deals, where they're either stealing their money, stealing a lot of the cuts of their artists, and basically going through the process where they were taking advantage of black people in these positions. Now, if you understand the history...
Now, I just want to be very explicitly clear. So what they're saying is back in the day, Jewish people tended to be the ones that would sign like black people on deals. I don't think that they would... So it sounds like historically... They may have been taking advantage of black people. I want to be very clear. The system itself is what set them up for black people up for exploitation. It's not just a Jewish thing. They happen to be in positions where it was easier for them to exploit black people. But like, let's not just go and say, oh, it's all the Jews when it's not, right? It's all black people, all white people exploited black people in some capacity. You could probably argue that they still do that now in some capacity. I just want to be very clear about that.
Of black folks in North America. There's a lot of exploitation where they feel a lot of the wealth that black people generated has been siphoned out of the community. And when you constantly see media representation of Jewish people and stealing those, as well as historical context that makes that shit true,
okay,
you can understand why there's a bit of a negative sentiment and animosity. Like, this might surprise y'all, but most black people did not give a fuck about Kanye's comments about Jewish people. They didn't really care about what Kyrie did because their relationship with the Jewish people was like, oh yeah, that shit sounds true. So until you demystify that, most black people are not gonna care. And then you punish these people, whether you feel that's justified or not, they're just going to build that animosity even further. So this is why I'm trying to say the dialogue needs to be a bit better.
We're talking about the music and Jewish people, and it's crazy.
Oh, there's a bunch of bars.
I remember when I was listening to the Fugees. You know the Fugees was big for me, right? That's the first time I saw some Haitian people being well represented and being proud to be Haitian and stuff like that. Now, before that era, it was not good to be black or to be like Haitian, even like whatever. And I remember I used to be underrated. Now I take Heinz, make my shit constipated. I'm more concentrated. So on my day off with David Sonnenberg, I play golf. Everything is a reference to a CEO of Sony and this and that. Once upon a criminal, Mazel Tov. Problem when I'm before I'm black, I'm first human. I protect the right like Frederick Douglass with the slave. Like it was always. If you listen to hip hop, there's always a reference.
Yep.
And saying, well, there's a lot. There's a lot of Jews in there's a lot of Jews. There's a lot of black people in a lot of industries, right? There's a lot of people in rap. That's racist. Okay. There's a lot of people in the NFL. That's racist. There's a lot of black people in track and field. None of this is racist and what's good. We can say that. When we talk about white people, but though we could say, well, white people in a position of power. Yeah, that's bad. But the other overrepresentation we can't really talk about. And then when we do, because
well, you can talk about all those other things you brought up. That's not true.
White people in a position, because people in a lot of industries. There's a lot of Jews there's a lot of Jews. There's a lot of black people in a lot of industries, right? Okay. There's a lot of people in rap. That's racist. Okay. There's a lot of people in the NFL. That's racist. There's a lot of black people in track and field. None of this is racist and what's good. We can say that. We talk about white people, but though we could say, well, white people white.
I think it's mostly because when we acknowledge that there's a lot of black people in basketball and shit, it's again like there was slavery, of course, but the type of like Jewish cabal argument where like Jewish people controlled the world is what led to the literal Holocaust. Whereas like black people overrepresented in basketball, it's not. It's not going to lead to, I don't think it's going to lead to a Holocaust. For the most part, the reason I'd say black people are more into basketball, is probably because basketball is a cheap sport that's very readily accessible in poor communities. That's pretty much it. It's a lot of the implications here, but I think that the questions are reasonable. I just don't know exactly why Jewish people are potentially overrepresented. And I would like to find some non-anti-Semitic things about it.
White people in a position of power. Yeah, that's bad. But
because honestly, I think I literally from right now, from my reasonable estimation, I think that the only reason that Jewish people might be overrepresented in positions of power is because they have very strong, like they have very culture driven and very strong ties, and they're white. It's basically like if Asian people were white and they were able to generate wealth in the United States for like 100 years. You know what I mean? Like I think that's pretty much it. You'd see the same high outcome. I don't think that it's anything super deep. Like, I think if Jewish people just weren't white, we would see something drastically different from a historical perspective. My understanding about Jewish people having like control of the banks back in the day, like way back in the day in other countries, had something to do with the fact that being in control of like money was considered like a bad, dirty thing. And so they let Jewish people do it because they saw Jewish people as less than. Because Jewish people have like a pretty rough past. They were literal slaves in Egypt. Right? Just because it led to the Holocaust doesn't mean we need to stop thinking about it. I agree, but understand that a lot of times when people... This is the first time I've seen anybody bring up like the question about why Jewish people... Like Abba and Preach are the first individuals who are bringing up the question about Jewish people being in positions of power without it having an anti-Semitic undertone to it. They're literally just saying, I don't know why. Can we have an explanation? Whereas most other people are doing it in order to shit on Jewish people. So that's why this is like a very fine line to play here. It's a very difficult line to balance and teeter onto. It's a hard conversation, but we have to understand that the question is the sensitivity needs to go along with the question. Right? That's, I think, what needs to happen.
The other overrepresentation we can't really talk about. And then when we do, because we want to question, we just want to question. We can't do that. It's just it's not. You have to understand how weird it sounds, guys.
Is that true though?
What?
That they just want to question? Because if we being honest, let me put on my little, you know what I mean? Okay. If I'm being honest, a lot of people are not just being like, well, I'm quite inquisitive. Some of them being like, yo, listen, bro, how you feel about the Illuminati? Because the Jews run this shit.
Yeah, he's right. That thing as well.
Yep.
I know you like it halal, but you going back to like it kosher too, motherfucker. Yeah, you about to get it.
I understand that, but it's like we can't even. There's no. You can't maneuver this thing. You can't maneuver or ask because you're always walking on eggshells. That's sus.
Well, no. It's not sus that you're always walking on eggshells. That's not suspicious at all. That is completely justifiable. Listen, I think that the bigger issue is that nobody's ever asked, like, talked about Jewish people in a way where it doesn't have anti-Semitism on board with it. Just like nobody really talks about, like, every time I see somebody talk about black crime rate, it's always a racist. Every time I see somebody talk about Jewish people in power, it's always an anti-Semitic person. There's never a normal person asking. I'll say, except for here. This seems to be a reasonable question. And I can understand why the paranoia becomes fueled by the censorship here. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Maybe us Jews are just built different, dude. Boom. Maybe we're just built different, bro. That's it, dude. Or maybe we're fucking white. I don't know. I have no fucking idea. But okay.
Whether you want a question or you're like, that's the minute you talk about something, then you get X. That's weird. And you know how they say, like, hey, if you want to know who's oppressing you, just check who you can't talk about. Man, we can't talk about y'all.
I get where he's coming from.
Talk about us.
I get where he's coming from.
We can't. Not even state of fact. You're gonna be classified. It's sus.
Are you trying to say you feel oppressed by the Jews?
Nope. Not me.
I don't have that deep of a curiosity about this group of people. I don't. It's not something I really research or take an interest in. I'm just telling you what I've heard through my peripheries pretty much my entire life growing up.
Okay.
And so that's why I wasn't surprised by any of these comments, because this sounded like a lot of the shit I was hearing in hip hop pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my suggestion is just that when it comes to this conversation, because you're looking at two communities that are coming from a place of like damage and extreme hurt, right? You have the Jewish people dealing with their Holocaust and, you know, anti-Semitism throughout the world. You got black folks who are dealing with, you know, Jim Crow and exploitation and through the media
And
industry.
that's just in the U.S.
You know,
But in the world, I'm saying
US.
what you're saying, the Jim Crow and everything stuff, that's in the U.S. But you have the apartheid, you have a lot of other things going on throughout the world. So you got your thing, we got our thing.
Yeah, you know, so all this to say, I think a bit of demystifying in regards to why things are in the place that they are. Like I drew the parallels with black crime or whatever it is. There's got to be a better education in regards to a lot of this stuff. Not just, we got 6 demands and you're going to think, do you honestly believe that Kyrie goes through this process and he's changed his opinions? You will put a grown man in timeout and you think you're going to change his mind? No. If anything, his fan base was bolstered, even though he may have lost endorsement deals in terms of the actual ideas. They've just grown more popular. And
so maybe I get what he's saying. People are just becoming more skeptical for sure. I think that the primary... Here's the thing. I think nowadays, regardless of whether you're black or Jewish, we as a media outlets will do a lot to repress conversations about groups that are considered minority groups. So when you ask questions about black people, and I obviously keep using black people because they're black, I'm racist, so just keep that in their minds. No, but it's the easiest one to compare it to. If you ask insensitive questions about black people, you're labeled a racist and you're made to apologize. If you ask insensitive questions about Jewish people, you're considered anti-Semitic and you're made to apologize, right? In both instances, we should talk about these in a more nuanced light. It's just the only difference between black and Jewish people is that black people are underrepresented and Jewish people are overrepresented, and that's why. That's where a lot of the. I mean, it's just going to continue the conspiracy-driven aspect of it.
Anti-Jew sentiment is increased. So the strategy that they're employing in order to fix the problem is backfiring.
That's
so
fair.
more conversations are needed in order to make things more sane. Not this shit where you go like, get rid of his brand deals, but we'll still sell the shoes. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Are people going to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, Kyrie's
well,
not bad.
they might have like a contract on the shoes. I don't know, and they just might be cutting ties after that. I don't know.
Or they're going to be like, wait a minute. What's that thing you was posting about? Let me see that.
Yep.
Let me see that shit.
Yep.
What's it about? That's what's gonna happen. More than the opposite. So, like the way you when you're saying that it's backfiring, yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
I really tend to agree with that.
It's my socials blew up with like on Twitter or whatever. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when it was hashtag the Jews, it wasn't exactly positive.
I mean,
you know what I mean? When they were talking about Facebook, it wasn't exactly the greatest thing. So when I'm seeing this, I'm like, I think it's backfiring. Just my thoughts.
Is it a couple of Jewish people that care, or most Jewish people don't? Like they're like, man, that's not.
No, they care.
The Jewish people.
Jewish people are like genuinely worried about the prospect of anti-Semitism, or because they understand that that stuff may potentially lead.
100%, yeah.
Costs, right? So yeah, they're actually worried.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was actually a really good video. I started the video. That was a very good video. I started the video being very frustrated with what this happened, and by the middle, once they started talking about the focus on like why can't we ask the question, I was like, okay, I understand what this is about. I thought that was a really good video. It was very thought-provoking, maybe very uncomfortable, and those are probably the best videos where I start very uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, I can see where you're coming from. I feel like those are the most stimulating and growth-oriented videos. What I will say to end this off here, to the last thing that Preach was talking about is like, do Jewish people really care? I'm ethnically Jewish. My father's Jewish. He's also an asshole. I've never felt like I've ever identified with my Jewishness up until very recently, as I've seen an increase in anti-Semitism coming from a lot of people. I never, and this happened after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which I know sounds bizarre, but just follow me for a second. In my entire life, I've never felt like anything would ever be a threat. It's like, things are the way that they are. Nothing really matters because we have no control over what's happening. 9/11 happened when I was younger, and that should have been the first call for me to understand that, like, you know, we're more susceptible to things happening than I realized. But for me, the big awakening moment was when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and I never thought it would be possible to happen. And now, we've overturned Roe v. Wade, so there are, like, half of our states have abolished abortion, and now we're having conversations, or our Congress is having conversations, a lot of conservatives, about banning gay marriage. It's very important to me to continue to, we need to make sure that we vote, really, for representation across the board on and fixing issues, because very clearly, things can go to fucking shit south very quickly. Okay? And so that's what scares me, because if there ever was some kind of a massive wave of anti-Semitism, you know, not to be selfish, but I could be on the chopping block, because one of the things is I'm openly joking about me being part Jewish, but also, you know, there's a little bit of ethnicity there. I have my Jew curls, after all. I usually cut them, though. So, yeah, even people who wouldn't necessarily identify as Jewish, myself, which I would consider myself, well, a little worried. A little bit worried, okay? It's a little bit spooky, but I do think that discourse is the best way to move forward, and I think what Advent Preach talked about here is very important, and hopefully leads to more conversations and non-anti-Semitic speculation as to why there isn't an overrepresentation of Jewish people, rather than onboarding basically the Jewish question. Okay? Okay. That was a good video. Thank you for recommending that. That was the first stimulating video I've had in a while. I'll just be honest with you. It's been a bunch of fucking, you know. Let me just be right back 1 second. My wife's awake, and then we're going to play some God of War. Okay?
I want Papa God to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.